The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan organized a discussion at HRCP office Islamabad on the implementation status of the UN Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment in Pakistan. The panelists of the discussion were Shafique Chaudhry, Executive Director, Parliamentarians Commission for Human Rights; Rabiya Agha, Chairperson, National Commission of Human Rights; Senator Mr. Farhatullah Babar, Council Member, HRCP; Nasreen, Azhar, Council Member, HRCP; Sadia Bokhari, HRCP Council Member; Ms. Muniza Jahangir, Council Member, HRCP. The event was attended by the HRCP's members and representatives of civil society. Following were the main points of discussion. Discussion is very timely. Last month it was announced that the next review of human rights situation in Pakistan under ICCPR will also take up the issue of torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment and treatment of persons deprived of their liberty in its meeting to be held in July-August 2024. Farhatullah Babar said that the torture is rampant in Pakistan. Apart from torture in police lockups and prisons, there are extrajudicial killings, internment centers not run by civilian bodies under some regulations, and above all, enforced disappearances that inflict torture not only on the victims but on entire families. There also are unreported cases of torture. The right to protection against cruel, inhuman or degrading punishment applies in all circumstances with no exceptions and fundamental to be a civilized state. Failing to criminalize torture has put the lives, the freedoms and the rights of vulnerable to risk. It corrupts the criminal justice system, promotes false convictions and breaks trust between state and citizens. Human rights institutions like the NCHR and NCSW have been weakened in recent years. Their weakening has weakened the safeguards against torture, he said. JPP recorded 17 cases of custodial deaths between June 26, 2020 and June 2021, but the state has been in denial of torture. The state has always denied the existence of torture, citing constitution and religion. But facts speak otherwise. Former Chairman NCHR late Justice Chauhan prepared shadow report on torture, but he was not allowed to send it to the UNHRC. Later, the NCHR Act was amended to debar him from applying again for the post of chairman. In Pakhtunkhwa province, internment centers are in existence for the past several years, operated by the non-civilians. There is no oversight mechanism. Even lawyers and family members have not been allowed to meet the inmates. No one knows how many have died in custody in these centers. There have been reports of torture also. During the course of hearings in PHC in 2019, it transpired that many enforcedly disappeared were lodged in these centers. They are totally opaque. Even members of parliament have not been allowed to visit. These centers are rightly called the Guantanamo Bay prisons of Pakistan. Initially, these centers were set up in merged districts. After merge, it was challenged on the ground of discrimination within the province. The government retaliated by extending internment center to the whole of province. It was done on August 5, 2019, the very day India scrapped its constitutional article to annex Kashmir and set up the region of terror. Repeat, set up the region of terror by its army. Today, the whole Pakhtunkhwa has its Guantanamo Bay prisons. Towards the end of 2019, the PHC ordered that the centers be closed. However, it was challenged in the Supreme Court by the powers that be. No hearing has been held since last hearing on December 24, 2019. Law passed by Parliament in November 2022 suffers from shortcomings. No law passed in provinces. Definition is not adequate and not consistent with UNCHR's definition mental torture. Language is not gender neutral. him implying that only men are its victims. There is need to bring the definition of torture into line with the Covenant and other international standards. Entrusting investigations to FIA under Section 5 is conflict of interest. It claims that FIA investigations under supervision of NCHR but does not say how. No funding. It was passed on November 4, 2022, but no custodial torture wing set up in FIA. There is no provision for funding the structures that need to be created for its implementation. The NCHR is the best suited, but it has no funding. Death penalty in a broken criminal justice system is the worst form of torture. It is incompatible with our obligations to prohibit torture and use of cruel and inhuman punishment. There is need for rational national debates on death penalty. Bring down the number of crimes carrying death penalty. It does not deter crime. It is irreversible. The religious injunctions need to be looked at afresh in the light of the expanding frontiers of right to life. Law enforcing agency personnel need to be providing training, resources, and access to modern methods of investigation. There is need to put in place a system of democratic accountability for state personnel in torture. We should ratify optional protocol to UNCAT and establish a national preventive mechanism. It is important for Pakistan to also meet international human rights obligations under the GSP status and other conventions. Today, there is lack of awareness of international standards prohibiting use of torture under any circumstance. Victims of torture should be entitled to reparation. We need to put accountability mechanism in place to investigate and, if convicted, punish perpetrators of torture or ill treatment and the process of ensure remedies to victims. A mechanism should also be put in place to compile data on the number of complaints, investigation, prosecutions and convictions in such cases and the remedies including compensation provided to victims, and it should also be made public.